ताल ही अंग है,
ताल ही रंग है,
ताल जीवन के पहलू का ये संग है।
ताल ही अंग है,
ताल ही रंग है, ताल जीवन के पहलू का ये संग है।
ताल ही ज्ञान है, ताल ही शान है,
ताल ही ज्ञान है, ताल ही शान है।
ताल साज और सुरों का संगम है।
Namaskar, Pranam, and welcome back to another episode of Tabla Tarang, brought to you by Tabla Niketan. Apologize for the delay, but I assure you we'll make up with today's episode. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this packed episode tonight. Last week, we concluded the group performance in round 2, and so we thought today's episode would be a great way to hear from the judges about the round 2 feedback. We'll also hear from Pratikji about some posture trips, as well as examples of Peshkar in various styles. So with that, let's begin by welcoming our judges, Tejavris Joshi and Pandit Amod Dange. Namaskar Tejavris and Amod. Welcome back.
Namaste.
Always a pleasure to have you here with us every week. So last week we watched the Vilambit categories perform. They performed in Uttan and Peshkar in Tintal. And just like category 2, we decided that we won't be announcing the individual standings this week. However, starting from the next round, we will continue to do that. So judges, thank you for that decision, and congratulations to all the participants in round 2. So let's go ahead and move into the episode for tonight. Tejavrisji, you've spoken many times about posture when you gave feedback for all of the groups. And it's very important for students to pay attention to posture. So today's episode, I'd like to dedicate some time on that. So joining us tonight, we have Dr. Pratik Shahaji from Fremont, California. And Pratik ji is a Tabla student, and he's also one of the mentors for Tabla Tarang. By profession, he's a physical therapist, and he runs eye motion physical therapy in Fremont and Los Gatos. He's a very sincere and very dedicated person and a fantastic doctor as well. I've personally been to his clinic many times, so first-hand experience right here. Pratik ji, welcome. Always great to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the concept of posture is actually very important, and I thought that it would be great to have your insight when we discuss this. So I want to open up this discussion to all of us here, as well as everybody watching online. If you have any questions, please use the Facebook live feed and the YouTube feed to send us your questions. And we'll try to address them over here today. So one of the things that's very commonly seen is students are not able to sit down for long periods. So for students who are having that issue, what would you recommend they do in order to build up that stamina?
So I like to go a little bit back and see why do we need the first of all good posture,
Sure.
and what is the functionality of the posture, and why do we emphasize a lot? Since we all are in the Silicon Valley, here we know that posture affects the aches and pains working on the computer, and our kids nowadays doing the schooling from the home and on the computer and all the time. So in Tabla, a few years ago I talked about our yearly Varshikotsav, right? That about the posture thing. But in the Tabla, posture is important. Few things. One is the stamina. We have to sustain long. Obviously it is a very tedious and very physically exertion on your body when playing the tabla. It is not a very easy instrument. And weight, how much weight you are giving, it is changing the tone quality. It's a language, it's changing the whole language as we are
Yes.
talking. Like where we put the comma, it matters a lot, otherwise the whole meaning of the sentence changes. The same way in tabla is the weight. So if our posture is not good, then we are not going to put the proper weight, we are not going to sustain long, and then we'll
Okay.
start having aches and pains, and then we will give up ultimately this beautiful instrument. It is probably the sweetest percussion instrument you will find on the earth.
Definitely.
So that is a little bit of introduction about the posture. Why do we need the good posture? Now, coming back to your question, like
Mhm.
how do people uh, can exert or build up the stamina with a good posture? And throughout this whole series, Tejo Guruji has given a lot of tips. And if we can accumulate together, that itself is like amazing treasure by itself. Uh,
Yes.
First, I'm going to say how people are going to, how do people modify their postures by sitting. So traditionally, I'm going to move this tabla. Traditionally, we are taught and we see everybody sitting cross-legged for the
Correct.
tabla, and
Correct.
this one is the respectful and the proper, and I'll come back to that one. The this thing, if you see why we do sit like that, so this is has related to yoga. If
Mhm.
yoga has originated from India, and if you go to the temple, if you go anywhere, even our meals we take sitting on the floor, and we sit with the cross leg. Right
Correct.
now, the people growing up or those who have not grown up in India, who and not used to sit with the legs all the way flipped out, they are very tight at their hip joint, right? And then typically you see them sitting like that, and
Mhm.
then all the modification. So I will go through like about four or five major one where people try to modify. One is this.
Sure.
The second one, I will go a little bit back here. So you can see
Yes.
when the tabla is in front of them playing and they start getting tired, even the youngs, and then there is the half cross leg. So one leg is out
Yes.
and they start playing like that. The second one is both legs straight and then they start playing like that. Another posture they modify is like putting the legs back, and so they
Hmm.
sit like this and then they are playing. And there is a one more which you see a lot in the kids, and that my mentorship has actually showed me that it's my first hand experience on that to observe is like sitting on the knees and then playing. And typically for the kids it's because tabla is too high, so they want to raise themselves up and then they start playing the tabla sitting on the
Hmm.
knee. Now imagine that you are sitting on the knee for 3 hours in the concert and accompanying somebody or playing solo. Your knee is going to have arthritis by the age of 20, right? Or you are
Very true.
not going to sustain too long with that. So
Yes.
functionality wise, you this one this posture has been proven for years traditionally to give you the maximum uh, stamina, and it is very hard to, if you, even if you are in like this and you will be keep moving, but this posture with the cross leg you can sit for very long. Now people, as Tejo Bruce explained a few episodes ago, that you have to develop this motion, this flexibility, and this stamina.
Correct.
And is like a exercise. Rome was not built in one day. Same is like your tabla skill, and same is like your sitting posture. So, but you still have to practice. So, meanwhile, take a break, and there are the different posture. One is like sitting on your like a kneeling position. The second one is they can do the tabla on the two chairs in front of them, and they can sit on the chair and then play the tabla just to continue with their rhythm and practice. And then
Mhm.
if that one gets tiring, then they can stand up and put the
Mhm.
tabla on the table or something with the rings, and then they can play. So people with the sciatica sometimes they are practicing with the standing position. So
Okay.
that's a little bit of modification of the postures you can adjust while practicing for your rhythm. But again and again, we have to build up with this. And yoga, any stretching exercise, anything will help to get you there. It is in younger age, it's definitely very easy. So if you are in less than 25-year-old, and if you are sitting like this, then start working on that stretches. And it is anyway for long term, other than the tabla, it's good for your hips to have that range of motion or that flexibility. So that is a way they have to build up. I would definitely ask the same question to Tejoguruji and Amodji, like because this is very common problem, and how do we traditionally have addressed in the our Gurukul style or with our gurus back in India. So can you give us some suggestion on that one?
Right. Yes.
Tejago?
First of all, thank you. And Amoji, if you, I would want you to go ahead with your suggestions first, and then I can join in later. However,
Yeah. Um, I have learned from so many stalwarts like my Guruji Pandit Ustad Mammola Sangavkar, Pandit Arvind. According to them, your sitting should be or your posture should be very easy. You should not stress any of your part of your body. And um, according to Ustad Mammola Sangavkar, he used it to keep tabla little closer to the body than dagga
Oh, okay.
because like this, like this, like this,
Uh,
little closer.
right,
Tabla, Pratik ji, tabla should be little closer to your cross legs, exactly middle. Yeah, yeah, that is.
okay.
So according to him, it is a good sitting position or posture.
Mhm.
And about the riyaz,
right,
just before we discussed about the kada or ring, actually, Pandit Arvind ji says that it's very harmful to our body or our fingers. Uh, Instead of that, if you riyaz in very slow tempo, that is the only good way to practice. And also to wear a bed seat or something like that on the tabla.
Yes.
Um, he says that the jhapat in Hindi, that is the best way.
right.
So it will not harm your fingers, and that's the proper way to practice according to Arvind. Tejogesh?
Right, right. So a little more elaboration on what Pratik ji just told all of us. So the sitting cross-legged is, even when we have our lunch and dinner or any food we consume, naturally in India, you're habituated to sit in the cross-legged manner. And fortunately or unfortunately, that's not yoga here. It's very natural to all of us. Fortunately, because when you use the word yoga, people get interested suddenly. And unfortunately, because it should have been imbibed in the culture itself. But that's fine. It's different everywhere. But sitting cross-legged actually has a lot of benefits, even in the natural zone. And somehow people are used to a more chair-type sitting format right now, and that's precisely why you give to problems like the legs not folding down straight, and then you have to inculcate some special practice to do that. So because of learning directly with our gurus under the Guru Shishya Parampara for a very long time, all of those values are intrinsically within us all the time. And of course, even as when I was at Tabla Niketan 2 years back, I saw almost everyone sitting down and with cross-legged positions, and everyone trying to adjust with that position. So naturally, it's not adjusting here because even when we don't do riyaz, if we sit down, we sit like that. So that is a habit that you should inculcate in yourself, definitely, because when you start doing it naturally, it's going to show up everywhere. That practice is going to show up everywhere, and it strengthens your core. That's why when we keep the shoulders at one level, and yeah, am I cutting in?
No, 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 no.
No.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when we keep the shoulders at the same level and the spinal cord at a very erect posture, even the food that we consume gets digested properly according to the yogic system. And that's why this is one of the many advantages of sitting that way. And that's basically a meditative format of
Mhm.
posture. Your meditativeness can increase in that posture. And it's some certain energies adapting in certain directions to make you concentrate and meditate better for that moment. That's why it's being very carefully chosen by our ancestors. Our postures are very much carefully, customized as
Yes.
to what we are trying to do. That is something that I would put forward. And also, when Pratikji and Amodji just mentioned about the rings and about some certain external weight forces applied to the hand to strengthen the hand.
Yes.
So these things should only be done for strengthening the hand. They should only serve the purpose, and then you should let go of it. Because my Guruji or many other gurus here, I've keenly observed them. Uh, they try to develop your hand organically as much as possible. The strength should come from within and not externally. Is what something is something that my guru has taught me every time. Definitely, it's a different concept everywhere, and I have seen many people doing their riyas with weights and some external forces. I think I think there is no harm doing that unless and until you don't get habitualized to that sort of weight around your fingers every time you start to. That's when you should be letting go of that particular thing and trying to create or develop the strength and realize your inner capability of your hand. That is something to be done in a long term. As you know, as we say that master the technique and then forget. So that's something to be done. So yeah, that's my bit about it. If we have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Well, thank you. I think that was very, very detailed. So thank you so
So
much, Pratik.
yeah, so I like to add in the same
Sure.
line of discussion. So when you are sitting the upright posture and your core, what Tejoruji was explaining, that your
Mhm.
core engages very well, right? And if your cores are weak, then that is the powerhouse. That's where the whole energy of sustaining for any activity, from any sports to any music to anything, is coming from the core. Now, if your cores are weak and you are not sustaining straight, so like your shoulders, and we will be coming more detail about it, but basically your shoulders are sitting on your spine, and that help to have the enough movement of your arm back and forth, and less stress on your forearms because of the shoulder is in the right position. If you are slouched, so I will sit in the little bit sideways position. So if you slouch and now your shoulders are coming forward, and this is the curve is developing, your shoulder blade is not moving, and there is no way you can bring your arm forward when it
Correct.
requires at the higher speed of relas and like that. So,
Right.
so that's why it is
Right.
very important to arch your back and bring your core in the picture. What the geography is saying. So that's
Right.
the picture
Uh,
of the.
uh, right. Sorry to interrupt. I just
No, no.
I'm reading out a question, uh, from Rucha Khistiji. She's basically saying, my child is asking if it's okay to sit cross-legged on a chair while eating dinner. I wouldn't recommend that because a chair has a very the surface is not plain,
Right.
and you need to sit on the ground. You need to connect to the ground while you sit. That's what even grounding has another expression
Yes.
in this yogic culture. Basically, it's a combination of many beliefs put together. Uh, but uh, but the idea behind sitting cross-legged is to connect to the ground, is to have a plain surface underneath you so that you
Yes.
don't develop any thigh problems later on. Because when you sit on a chair, it's going to have a hurdly surface, and a hard surface rather, which is mostly going to be uneven unless you're sitting on a sofa, which also doesn't makes a sense because it needs to be perfectly balanced. It needs to be hard,
Hmm.
but at the same time, not I would say not harmful to your body. So
Correct.
I wouldn't recommend
Hmm.
eating dinner or whatever it is. You just sit on the ground, just connect to the ground, and start practicing the position.
Yes.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you so much. I think
that's it.
that was a fantastic way of explaining. And I think as being a tabla player, we have that advantage of, when we sit on the ground, unknowingly we get that advantage when we practice of sitting down and just relaxing and staying grounded. So I think that's one of the biggest advantages that we have as a tabla player. It's one of those few instruments that you can actually sit down and play. Not It's not like the drums or any Western instruments where you have to stand up or you sit on a chair and play. And as I'm talking about this,
True.
I'm feeling pretty guilty sitting here on a chair. So maybe next time I'll probably sit down and do my episodes here.
That's fine.
Um,
Even I'm sitting on a chair. That's fine.
yes, I think Pratik ji is the only one sitting down. So
Yeah.
That the tabla made me to get
Everyone should just listen to Pratiji as of now.
down.
But so that brings me towards my next question, which you almost mentioned. The shoulders have to be at the same height. But apart from that, what about the elbows and what about the wrist? I've noticed a lot of times students will start dropping their wrist down and they'll try to play
Mm.
like this. The wrist is down, but the hand is going
Yeah.
upwards. So, what would you say
Mm.
about those positions and how do we correct them?
Right. Should I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
and then I
Yeah.
will do follow.
Yeah. So, in Marathi, or I would rather translate it and say that if there are 100 people out there, you'll naturally have 100 personalities, 100 different techniques, and so everyone is going to have a different way of looking at it, of playing the tabla. The thing is that the guru should be able to closely monitor what the student is doing at all times during the primary stage, not later. Once he knows what to do, once he knows well enough to keep his hand exactly as you are, assisting, or Baba is assisting. Until then, you need to keep a close look because in the primary stages, it's very it can happen that
Mhm.
the student may get easily distracted from the positions and try to create his own positions, whatever suits comfortable to them.
Right.
And I've often seen this. If I don't monitor someone closely for a few days, then the same syllables are played differently, They apply the pressures differently by themselves, and they use their own thinking to do that. And not always do they succeed having good results. So, and that is something of a very serious nature while you start to play,
Correct.
because once you start giving out your energies through
Mhm.
your elbows, or through your mid what can you say, forehand or something, then it takes the energy out of you much more quickly and much more faster than it would when you're just applying it from the wrist. So if your energy just comes from the wrist part, here and above, all of this section is the most ideal way of bringing out your energy and play. But
Mhm.
if your energies are coming through here, through the elbows, or through the shoulders, then you are at a risk of not being able to play for longer hours, or
Correct.
not being able to play effectively, and you will experience fatigue in a short period of time. So
Yes.
what you should focus on is releasing the energy only through your wrists,
Mhm.
and that's why those I would say the arm movements and the flexibility of those movements need to be very correct, and they need to be monitored.
Got it.
That's what I feel.
Mhm. Pratik ji, you were
Um,
going to
uh,
say something?
Yes, no. So I will continue on that one. But before that, I would like to ask Amod, like in the singing, they have different kind of vikrutis of like moving the jaw too much and having the bad
Hmm.
posture. Is there any vikrutis like that in the tabla players do develop? Have we categorized like that traditionally? Amod ji.
Amarji, is he able to hear us?
So will you please
Can
repeat
you
your
hear?
question?
Yeah, so like in the like a vocalist, they have the different vikrutis. Like somebody sings with the jaw moving too much, and sometimes like a different posture. Do we have same kind of vikrutis being developed as the tabla player? If
Yeah,
if we
actually,
don't.
so I can't. There are some disturbances. I think I could not hear your last sentence.
No, the Michael question like if we don't pay the attention, do we develop the vikrutis or the bad habits because of that?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, some stalwarts or my Guruji also even only this is the work of only rest. You should not use your elbows and your shoulders while playing tabla, and that is I think that is related to individual. That is depend on your height and tabla. Your tabla daga you select. That is on depend upon all those things. And you told about something like this. This is not good. Actually, you should sit like what is that? What you can say, Ashish? Mm, in Marathi, Tejoprash.
Uh,
I don't know
the
exact English word
some
for
sort of
for that.
uh, in a upright position, and
No, no, not like that. I will tell you sometime after some time.
It's okay. You
But
can
you
sure,
should
sure.
explain
you
in,
should
in
Or
have
you
Marathi
can,
as
specific
well.
posture.
yeah, you can actually elaborate in Marathi, and we'll,
Now
we'll understand.
and one thing my teacher told, when you sit in the classroom like this, you should be as easy as you in the classroom while playing tabla. That's all.
Mm. Okay.
And prasanna hasat mukh, what you can say,
Hmm.
smiley face.
Yes.
Like
Right.
you
It's
should
with a
not have
very
a
pleasant
space on your. You should not have any type of space on your face, on your eyes, and something like on your neck. You should sit like this.
true,
Correct.
true,
Yes.
true. There's a very actually, art is an extension of yourself.
Absolutely.
Art is something very much organic, very much created, and it should be very much of a natural extension from you. So whatever your art is, if your art is painting or singing, it should be a natural extension of you. That's why when you sit with the tabla, it shouldn't feel like you are wanting to sit with the tabla, or the tabla wants to be with you, or something like that. It should be a magnificent, I would say, energy between you and your instrument. So just try to naturally approach it. Just treat it like it's an extension of your body part. That's why when you just hit the or play the tabla, I would say, it should feel like you're doing. It should feel like you're breathing. It should feel like you're drinking
Yes.
water. It should feel like you're talking. You know, it should be as casual of that as that. So try to approach the instrument with that energy, with that kind of affection, I would say,
Mhm.
that it becomes a natural extension of yourself.
Yes.
That's-
Right. So what and exactly what Tejavush is saying is like it is yourself. Your instrument is the extension of you. There is
True.
no
Exactly.
differentiate of you and the instrument, right? And that's the only natural way. And during this whole thing, you have to understand your body too, how you are, where you are having aches and pains, how you are going to modify. When you're a kid, obviously it is hard. So talking
Yeah.
about this energy coming from below the waist, right? So now, if you see, the tabla is a very small place we are playing. We do not have much room to go around. The maximum we go is like a lower part, lower one third, middle one third, and upper one third, right? That's the maximum we are traveling. The shoulder, elbow, forearm, those are the big muscles, right? When
Mhm.
you do the big muscles use, you are going to overdo it. So when you are overgoing to do it, these muscles are the little ones. They are like if you do the dissection, it's like literally these small muscles, right? And you are getting the impact from the bigger muscles. They are going to suffer, and then you start getting tired, and we call it strain and all those things. Now, the second part of it is this, like our Gajra is our no parking zone, right? And we park our hand over there, like in the no parking zone, and like on the keyboard. And now, when you are trying to play, so what happens is you, when you are bringing your finger down, along with the strength, the gravity is also working, right?
Mhm.
When you bring your wrist up, you're putting your muscles in the strained position. Is already stressed out, and your range and your strength goes down. So try to grip something like this versus try to grip something like that. Your grip is not as strong as like you are here, right?
Mhm.
So when your hand is like more in the natural position versus like a drop down, you have advantage of the gravity of your finger bringing it. And when you're playing at the higher speed or even sustaining for a long time, you really don't need too much of the room to move around that and to
True.
prevent the injuries. Otherwise, the bigger muscles are going to do it. Now, typically, you see people playing like this, right? This is
Mhm.
really disaster for the your under the thumb area.
Okay.
If you do other
Yes.
side, or sometimes people do like this. Now,
Yes.
that is the definitely in medical world we call it rotator cuff injury. For sure, you are going to get it.
Mhm.
Um, Dropping too much. When you drop too much, then you start hitting tabla like this, so then your elbow is gone. All right. So rather than going that Satish ji always taught us, right, 5 to 11 o'clock position on the tabla, having the tabla in such a way that you are making a circle like this versus
Mhm.
making a square around you like this, right? So that circle is very important, how when you are sitting and playing and keeping your elbow, shoulder, wrist position together.
Yes. Yes. Very perfectly described.
True.
Yeah. So
I
that
think it's
brings
a
me
play
sort
of
of.
energies. It's yeah, Ashish, go on.
No, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, as you said, Pratikji, it's a play between energies is what I think. And once everything is supposed to be very much balanced in here. Everything has to be in a certain amount of frame, only in a certain weight, and all of those restrictions. Because when you play this music, it shows you discipline. It makes you disciplined as a human being. That's because the art has some boundaries to it. So that's why when you play with your wrist, while you focus on your wrist, you should also look that it's balanced. I mean, your hand shouldn't be going too further north, and then your fingers up at the bottom, because that would just that would just shift all of the weight to the finger, and then this has a more chance of getting injured, or not good enough. It's not good enough in the long term. And if you do this, the opposite way around, if you lift this too much, then all of your weight focuses on your elbows and shoulder area. That's again disastrous for you, because you can't play for long. You end up playing in the wrong way. So it has to be a perfect balance of both the postures right there. So that's what and that creates an energy field. And of course, as you mentioned, room, we don't have much room, so we have to be really compact. And the more speed you take, the more dexterity you'll need eventually. But if you are playing at a Vilambit pace, say Peshkar or something, in the initial layer, it's okay to falter a bit around here and there, and to go around and explore. But once you do your Tishra Jati, Chatushra Jati, once you get into speed, the more that you go into speed, the more compact you'll have to be when you play.
Yes.
That's what Pratikji meant.
Definitely. I remember Sopanji had mentioned in an interview that I was watching recently, you have to be very relaxed when you're playing. If any part of your body is tight, if your muscles are tight, then you're not going to be able to play. Your hands have to be extremely relaxed. You have to be relaxed as well. So definitely agree with all the points that you mentioned there. Now, Pratikji, you mentioned about injuries. And so that brings me towards my last question of this section. As there are many students learning tabla that are in the IT industry, and they spend hours on the computer, and so they start complaining of issues like back pain, wrist pain, carpal tunnel. So for these students, and as you mentioned, we don't want anyone to stop pursuing tabla. So for these students, what would you suggest? How do they continue making sure that they don't injure themselves or make their condition worse?
So this is, as I was mentioning, it is a very vast topic, and we can
Yes.
talk for hours regarding this. But what I would give the few points is, one is, consciously you have to get out of the one posture and transfer to the other posture. We are not meant to stay in the one posture for too long. Okay,
Mhm.
so what I mean to say is, because of the work and there is a stress, we lose the orientation of the time, and by the time we
Mhm.
realize it's like 4 5 hours we are sitting in the same position. You must be experiencing with editing all these videos, right, coming bombarding you. So get out of that position. Nowadays, the Apple Watch has that you can set the timer, or there are the free apps where
Yes.
it reminds you, it freezes your screen, and it says it's the ergo break time, right? And then you move your mouse, and then you get out of it. Don't change too frequently.
Mhm.
Every 40 minutes of sitting you can stand up for 20 minutes, and that is good enough. Like, not every 5 minutes you want to do it, right?
Yeah.
So that is on the IT side. I love my IT people, and they go and talk to Dr. Google, and Dr. Google gives them all the information. But to implement that Dr. Google's information is very important. So very first thing is, take a break, frequent breaks. Second thing is, uh, please do participate regular exercise workout program. That is where that will help you in your tabla performance side. It will help your breathing and it will help you to manage your stress. In tabla, I mean, particularly in the beginning level, I remember like when mind is not focused and your mind is all over the place, your rhythm is all over the place, right? So when you exercise and when you have a deep breathing and that oneness of the breathing, that will help you in tabla rhythm and everything. Regarding the IT side, I'll go back and forth tabla and IT.
Yes.
So IT side, uh, that's the only way you can sustain for whatever 30, 40 more years left in your life for that work, right? So if you do not take care of it, it is going to answer you. Now, it is not the mattress, it is not the pillow, it is not the computer, it's not the keyboard, right? It is you
Yes.
who is the problem, right? So go and change yourself, and then things will start falling in place. So again, rather than the external, change yourself from internally, make a disciplined lifestyle, and be conscious in taking breaks. That is the one most important thing I can say.
Okay. Tejavrshi, Emoji, anything that you'd like to add?
Yes, yes, yes. Pratik ji, I would like to ask you a question about some diseases regarding our, especially our fingers, our hand. Um, some people says that it's a what is that writer's cramp or focal hand dystonia. Will you please something tell us about that? Because so many tabla players, special tabla players, and also guitarists suffering from that
Mm.
focal hand dystonia. So can we
Right.
get rid of that?
Right. So, and it is, I'm glad that you brought this point so we can relate it. So, there are the few things can cause. First off, is like a true arthritis in your small joints, right? That could be the osteoarthritis, or it could be rheumatoid arthritis. We call it rheumatoid arthritis is basically autoimmune disease. Your body is fighting against yourself. And that rheumatoid arthritis, the first effect you will start seeing is the small joint stiffness in the small joints in the morning, right? And that one is definitely we need to take care of it medically with the medication and to lower the pain. And I always say that motion is a lotion. Don't keep it stiff. If you keep moving it, keep having motion, that gives the lubrication to the joints. So motion is a lotion. But for the guitarist, tabla player, majority of the time it builds up. And I was looking for all the National Institute of Health research about the uh, musicians, injury in the musicians, and it showed that it's a typically poor posture, raising the shoulders up too high and holding that position over the periods of years is bringing the defect in the hands and the small joints. So can it be cured? If it is very chronic, no. But if it is initial stage, do not ignore it, because once it's turned into the chronic condition, then you lose your instrument, your career, and your passion about the thing.
Oh,
Mm.
thank you.
Uh,
Right.
Yes.
And yeah,
Tejavrshi,
so that
anything?
that is important. Is like what Tejoruchi was saying too, that dexterity and then having that small movement for tabla, even to strengthen your hand. A very simple thing is like squeeze balls we get, or get the 4 or 5 rubber bands. Like have the rubber bands on your
Mhm.
fingers like this, and then open up your hand like this.
Yes,
Right
like this.
now, that one is going to right, and that is going to help to bring the fingers up easily,
Mm.
and rather than getting fatigue at the forearm. So, and 5 rubber bands are easier than make it 6, and so forth, right? So that is like a small joint building. You are building the nowadays we have roti maker, but making the dough itself is a very good exercise for the small muscles of the right. So sometimes
Right.
then we have to be conscious in our lifestyle. So
Uh-huh.
Y- y-
Thank you. Thank
True.
Pratik ji, saying those kind of
Um,
things live on TV is not good, okay? I- I'm sure there are lots of parents watching this, so I have an idea of what they're going to ask their kids to do as soon as this episode is done. But that brings me to an interesting story. Last year we had a harmonium player who was staying with us, and he had this device, and he was constantly using it to do this. And at that time, I was, wondering what's going on. But now that you mentioned that, this is a good way to practice that, it's sort of making sense now that he was using that for those purposes and to relieve himself and to make sure that he doesn't have to face those issues.
Yes. Something to add here because
Yeah, definitely.
I read out something from Amit Karmarkarji on
Mhm.
Facebook. Uh, he says, I mentioned something earlier about Riyaz with weights. If I heard right, I was wondering
Mhm.
what was that, or if there are any more tips on that we can use. Okay, so if you haven't heard, we are focusing on much more of an internal, intrinsic way to to mold your hand in a certain way, and not on external forces. But even I would like to add. um our old our ancestors, our gurus, or the old people belonging to a particular generation or before that, they used to have many organic ways to heal a hand or to mold a hand, and that's something that they used to do if they encountered a problem with a certain individual or with a certain shishya. And then they would have their own so, let's say Vedic formulas, or any other medical branch, some certain healing things, and then they would ask the patient, or ask the students to wear some weights, or to squeeze this, squeeze that, and all of that. They used to do it very organically because they knew that this might help the student.
Mhm.
So unless you're medically advised to bring that kind of a power, because I think usually if someone encounters a problem, there are some exercises to be given to heal the hand. So unless you are told to do that, don't resort to external weights, don't resort to external structures, which will stop your organic capability of molding your hand by yourself. So I would advise not to do any of that. If you're perfectly fine, do your riyas.
Right.
Speed up your riyas a bit. Sit for double time, and do what you need to do. But but don't resort to external weights until you're advised.
Definitely.
That's it.
I agree with you 100% on that. It's definitely
So I
not.
like to ask Amodji. Amodji, you mentioned that Arvindji was suggesting to put, and same thing Satishji also has suggested us, and to put the bed sheet, right? And I'm
Yeah.
also telling in my group to put the bed sheet, and every time after the bed sheet, the sound is much clearer, the clarity, the easiness of the play tabla is much better, and that's a very first hand experience. So two things. One is what is the reasoning? Is it like because we are hitting harder, or what is the reasoning of the bed sheet? And second thing is how much every day we are supposed to do it before we start Riyas.
No, actually, I can't tell you exactly um, how it's when we put the bed sheet. After that, we get a good sound or good resonance. Uh, I think Tejobush can tell something about that.
Yeah. See, it's like you're searching for something. When you put the bed sheet, and when then you start to play, you're actually searching for that tone. You're actually looking forward to hearing the original tone of tabla once you take off the bed sheet. So it's like if you're just playing the tabla normally, you're not searching for anything. You're just playing it. But once you put the bed sheet, it's like you're trying to replace the original sound, and trying to go as much closer to it as you can, within those constraints of whatever you do. Usually, generally in India, artists do that to avoid neighbors kicking them out, or lodging a complaint against it.
Even in USA.
Oh yes,
Even
even
in
in the
US.
US.
So
But I
it was
think,
primarily,
Pratik,
I
I
think,
think that is, I
yeah,
think that is psychological. I can't tell you exactly, but
true.
when I
Could
put
be,
the
could be,
bed
yeah.
sheet, I get so resonance from tabla and dagal.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
Definitely.
So that is something of a sound that you want to experience once you take off the bed sheet. You're happy with the sound. You explore the sound in a more deeper detail. So that is something to can be used as an improvisational tool of your hearing senses. So that
Right.
can
And
actually help in that.
and it's helped you a lot to increase your stamina. That's the truth.
Yes.
It's helped you a lot.
Hmm.
Right. Definitely.
Definitely. I think this has been a fantastic discussion, and I really don't want to stop it here. But we still have another section that we need to move on to. So let's go ahead and transition into our second section for today, the Peshkar section. And I'd like to talk a little bit about Amoji here. And Amoji has actually written a lot of books. One of the books that some of you might be knowing is Complete Tabla. And everybody in Tabla Niketan has pretty much used that textbook to study for their exams, including myself as well. It's been widely used, and everybody loves that book. So Amoji's knowledge about the
Thank
tabla
you.
and the tabla compositions is just simply amazing. So the round that we just completed, our focus was the Utan and Peshkar. So let's look at a couple of Peshkars in various styles. First, we'll look at an introduction about Peshkar, and then we'll listen to a Peshkar in Tintal, Japtal, Rupak, as well as Ektal. So let's enjoy this segment. After that, we'll come back and continue our discussion if we have any more questions on Facebook and YouTube.
Hello, Namaskar. Today we will have some introduction of Peshkar. Peshkar is the most prominent concept in solo tabla playing. Generally, solo tabla playing starts with Peshkar. Peshkar reflects so many things of artists like his study, his training, his knowledge of gharana, his command over daya and baya, his command over laikari. Peshkar, the word Peshkar is derived from Pesh Karna, means to present. Peshkar also have a Farasbandi. The Farasbandi is also Farsi word. It means base or foundation. So actually Peshkar is based on the divisions of the tal. For example, if I am going to play Peshkar in Japtal, so it should be 2 3 and 2 3. It should be divided like 2 3 2 3. In other opinion, there is a concept related to Peshkar, that is Farasbandi. The Farasbandi means a foundation. It means that to divide the total number of matra in four same parts or equal parts. Again I am coming to Japtal. If I want to make a Farasbandi in Japtal, I have to play its two and half, four equal parts of two and half matras. So now we will have let us have very example of Farukabad Farasbandi or Farukabad Peshkar in various talats. Now Peshkar in Tal, Teen Tal. Then, dha, then 5, 6, 7, 8, dha, then, ta, ta, sakadhin, dha, then, kradhin, na, dha, then, da, then, na, da, then, da, then, na, da, kradha, da, then, na, then, kridenna trakadenna denna detta da denna takakida da detta denna da trakada detta da denna den kridenna trakadenna denna detta denna trakadenna da krada denna trakadenna da denna kitakadenna kitakating tina kinatagatina kitataga trakadenna kinatagida da denna gida da denna gida da denna da denna da trikada da denna takagida da krida denna da denna da denna da trikada da denna 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 da. Now Peshkar in Tal Japtal according to the division. Then na then na then na then na traka then na traka then na then na da 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 then na then na then na then kridenna da denna then kridenna kenna then kridenna then kridenna da denna da denna da denna da denna da denna then. Now I am presenting Farasbandi in Tal Japtal. As I told you before, I am going to divide Japtal in 4 equal parts. Then na trakaten na then na then trakaten na then na trakaten na 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 then da denna 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 then Now Peshkar in Tal Rupak. Now we will see a Peshkar in Tal Ekta. धिन धिन धागे तेरे किट तू ना कत तिम धागे तेरे किट धीना त्रक धिन धिन धागे तेरे किट तू ना कत तिम धागे तेरे किट धीना धीग धिन धाग धा 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 तिन तक खिडान धाग तेरे किट धा 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 तिन तिंग धिन किन्ना ता ता तिन तक खिडान धाग तेरे किट धा धा धिन धिंग धिन खिन्ना धा तिन तक खिडान धाग तेरे किट धा तिन तिंग धिन किन्ना ता तिन तक खिडान धाग तेरे किट धा धिन किट तक तिंग तिना किन तक तेरे किट ताके त्रक तिना किन धा त्रक तिना किन धा त्रक तिना किन धा धा धिन्ना धा तिन्ना तक खिडान धाग तेरे किट धा तिन्ना ता ता तिन्ना तिन्ना तक खिडान धाग तेरे किट धा तिन्ना धिन्ना तिन्ना धिन्ना तिन्ना तक खिडान धाग तेरे किट धा तिन्ना 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 तक खिडान धाग तेरे किट धा तिन्ना 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 then
Thank you so much, Amodji, for taking us through these various peshkars. It's great to see how the peshkar can be improvised and presented. So thank you so much for these examples. So I have a question for you, and this just came up as I was watching these videos. Any interesting stories about learning the peshkar? Because peshkar is something that cannot be taught. It's improvised, right? So any interesting
Exactly.
stories or experiences with Arvind Murgaonkarji or any of your other gurus when they were teaching you peshkar?
Ashish, actually, Peshkar itself a big story actually. But
The question was that when you were learning peshkar from your gurus, was there any interesting stories? Okay. Sorry, can I
always I
request
can't tell.
can I request Tejavush and Pratik ji to just go on mute for a second? There are some background noises coming.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I was
Please
saying
repeat
that
your.
yes. So I was saying that since Peshkar is a improvised composition, right? It's spontaneous. When you were learning these from Arvind Murgaonkarji or any of your other gurus, were there any interesting stories while learning these or any interesting experiences that you want to tell us about?
Yeah, I would like to add something. Um,
Sure.
Actually, as you know, Peshkar is itself a big story.
Yes.
But my Guruji Ustad Mahpulal ji and also Arvind ji, and actually, I would like to share some tips for the Peshkar from the young players and um, kids. That
Sure.
Peshkar in Qaeda, the difference between Peshkar and Qaeda is what? The difference between expansion. Actually, both are the expansionary composition, but the expansion of Qaeda and Peshkar is very different. For
Okay.
example, if I am playing Dhatite Dhatite Dhadhatite Dhageti Nakina, I will I will expand it regarding to bowls like Dhatite Dhatite Dhada Dhatite Dhada Dhatite. Now here I am expanding a bowl of Dha or Theta or Dhatite Dhatite
Mm.
Thita Dhatite Dhada Dhatite Thita Dhatite Dhada Dhatite Dhageti Nakina. But in the
Yes.
Peshkar, we have only one syllable and you should able to make so many designs or create so many designs with only even that one syllable. You
Mhm.
can according to my guruji Arvindji, he used to say that every character, every syllable has his own character.
Right.
Now look, dha is everywhere. It's also in Peshkar, also in Qaeda, and also in Rela. Even I would like to give you an example of Tirakita. Uh,
Hmm.
we used to play Tirakita from Peshkar to Laggi, but the
Right.
character of Tirakita is very different in every concept.
Correct.
In about Peshkar, if I am playing a Peshkar of Delhi, I will play dha dha Tirakita dha te dha Tirakita dha te dha dha then kit dha tere kit dha tere kit dha te dha dha te dha dha then. But according to him, or also I got so many things from Pandit Bhai Gayatri Sudhir Bhaikar Pandit.
Hmm.
Um, so he told in Peshkar we have to play not Tirakita, but that should be Titakita. Dha kida dha, Titakita dha, Titakita
Got
dha,
it.
dha, na. Kita dha, Titakita dha, Titakita dha, dha, na, da.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
in Qaeda, we will not use Tirakita in that manner. Titakita. It would be Tirakita. Dade dhage na datere kade dade dhage dhinage na datere kade tak dhatere kade dade dhage dhinage na dade dhage na
Hmm.
dade. But in the Rela, we are going to make a chain of sound. That's why you
Right.
should not play the Titakita or
Hmm.
Tirakita. You should play their what you call Arunasik um, noisy sound, something like Tirakita. From the those you have to recite
Hmm.
Tirakita, not Tirakita.
Wow.
Like this. So that will
Correct. Correct.
in Rela you have to give less pressure for Tirakita.
Yes.
Terakita. That should be terakita. So and that is the important in Peshkar. If you are playing only dha, you are suppose. Actually, the condition or rule is that Peshkar should end with dhenna, like resa. Dha kda dha dha dhenna dhenna dha 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 dhenna. But I am going to play only dha. Then Guruji used to tell me that every dha has a different character. Now
Right.
you can see in Tital we have first matra that is dha, and even fourth matra that is also dha.
Correct.
But there are much more difference between that those two dhas. Dha then na. That same the dha then na then na dha kda.
Right.
So that is not pre-planned actually. That should be spontaneous.
Definitely. Yes.
Yes, Tejavush, would you like to add something?
Yeah, that's an amazing descriptive detail on the phonetics of how it should be, and that this is what the traditional masters preached. They used to show you the correct nikas through your padan. They used to tell you what dha means in three or four different ways. So when you actually go to play it, and if you do the padant properly, you can also reproduce four different sounds of dha from your hand. That's your outlook at what you should be playing. Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. That is something to be that is something that is only traditionally
Hmm.
learned through very age old gurus who have mastered this particular barriers of language those are very hard to cross. So just like the Titakita and the Tirakita example that Amoji gave, uh, Delhi has a very specific inclination towards the Titas and Tirakitas. So of course they have a little bit more mastery over those bowls. So they have figured out two or three different ways to hit the same bowl, but in different mediums, kaidas and relas. So that's going to be just a second. Yeah, sorry, getting some sounds here. Sure. So yeah, I second what Amulji is saying. It's wonderful. The Peshkars that you just descriptively said it out are those upaj characters that because someone is writing about upaj here. Can Amulji reflect on upaj in the Peshkar context? So that is just fitted into the time cycles, and the rest is up to you as to what you do with it. So it's
Correct.
your mastery over how you take it forward, because Peshkar is something that an individual has to take it forward. You know? Yeah,
Right.
that should be.
Absolutely.
Uh, I would like to add one thing.
Mhm.
If where we compare between Qaeda and Peshkar, in short, I would like to tell Qaeda. We while playing Qaeda or while expanding Qaeda, we always think about the bet. One, two, and unlike that in Peshkar, we always think or we should think about the distance between bit. That is
Mm.
the main
Right.
difference between Qaeda and Peshkar.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that was really, really very descriptive, very informative. And I think this session has been amazing. I did not expect that we would go so long on just a discussion, but the way that all of you have been today is just simply amazing. So once again, thank you so much, Pratik ji, Tejavrsh ji, and Amod ji. Thank you so much for being here today. And I'm sure there's plenty of questions that everybody still has. There are some questions on YouTube still that we have not got to, but I think we should do another session very soon on this. Like Pratik ji mentioned, it's countless amount of information to provide on just one episode.
Yes.
So we will definitely come back with this theme again. Unfortunately, we'll have to push the tabla solo into next week. We're having some technical issues with that video, but be assured that it's not forgotten. We will come back with it next week. We will have Tejo Vershi's tabla solo, and I listened to it when you sent it to me. It is fantastic. All of you will really enjoy it. So please do tune in next week for Tejoverji's Tabla Solo. And we'll see you all next week, same day, same time. Thank you so much.
ताल ही अंग है,
ताल ही रंग है,
ताल जीवन के पहलू का ये संग है।